It's June of 1953. Yale University, a young group of students is graduating from college. This is a time in your life where things change, and sometimes there's big changes ahead of you, there are big plans ahead of you, and so in this year of 1953, some psychologists decided to do a study. They asked the graduating class to answer a question, very simple. Do you have a plan written down for your life? Literally, physically written down. And so they divide into a group. One where they're people who have already written this plan and other people who haven't, okay? Turns out 3% have written it, 97 haven't. It's not a very common thing. And so time passes as the class of 1953 graduates. 20 years later, they come back to the same group of people and they study them to see the impact of a written plan, okay? Now, the 3% that has written a plan had achieved more wealth than the 97% of people who didn't. More than 97, it's incredible. It shows, I guess, the power of an artifact, writing it down, right? I think we intuitively think that this is something that makes sense. But what is wrong with this study? It never happened. Never happened. This is a study that is cited by Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins. I mean, you look at these books and they cite the Yale study of 1953, but it never happened. In fact, Fast Company did research into this along with some professors, universities. They didn't just do it on sort of this BuzzFeed level look into things. No, they contacted Yale, the research department. They literally called the class of 1953, and they found nothing. They even looked at Harvard because maybe there's some confusion in the way it's cited, but that's not true either. This is something that was somewhere along the way made up and somewhere along the way then repeated. But it asks us, it begs us almost to wonder, what is the power of an artifact, writing it down? What impact does that have on our commitment? So, Dr. Gail Matthews from the Dominican University of California was so curious about this that she actually did a real experimental study on this thought of writing goals down and the impact it has. And now I could take it to that BuzzFeed level again and just say the number to you, but I think it's actually important that we take a minute to contemplate, to ask ourselves, what did they study in this? Take a deeper look into it. And that points back to one of the 7 elements of honor for Because I Said I Would. That is contemplation. I reserve the time to understand the world and attempt to understand my place in it. When I see that my commitment is needed, I remember that promises are not easy to keep. I believe in planning and careful consideration. My words and actions have consequences. I should be patient with both. So in attempting to understand the world around us, I think we need to take a pause to really look at what some of these studies mean. So let's dive into it. What were the different groups that were tested? What were the differences between these groups? And really, what did this study show? Let's talk about Group 1. Participants in Group 1 were simply asked to think about their goals, to think about what they wanted to accomplish in the next 4 weeks, and they were asked to rate that goal. Group 2 was a little bit different, and this was true for Groups 3, 4, and 5. They were also asked to type that goal down, right? Just type it into an online survey and rate their goal by some certain dimensions, how capable they thought they were of fulfilling these commitments and things like this. Now, when we look at Group 3 added something. They were asked to write down specific action commitments. So not the far off goal, but there's different steps, and you could even think of them as promises that were gonna get them to that goal. Group 4 was asked to write down their goals in that online survey, but they were also asked to email that goal to a supportive friend, someone that could maybe hold them accountable to what they said they would do. Now, Group 5 is the last group. They were asked to not only think about the goal, not only write it down, to send it to a friend, but also send a weekly update to say, hey, how are things going? And in fact, the university itself would send reminders to make sure that this communication was happening, as we sometimes forget to follow up on these things. And so this is a difference between Group 1 through 5. What was the difference? What was the difference in mean goal achievement, meaning the average number of goals that were achieved? And when we say success in this particular study, again, contemplating, understanding really what happened in this particular research, we have to realize that goal achievement was 50% or more of the goal was achieved. Now, in the world of Because I Said I Would, we would not consider that a promise kept, but we want to stay true to really what these findings are. So what was the average number of goals achieved between these different groups? Let's talk about that. I think one of the biggest differences you see right off the bat is the difference between unwritten goal and written goal. There's a 42% increase in goal attainment with just simply writing the goal down. That is the only difference. And then when we look at the difference between group 1, who had unwritten goals, and that group 5, who not only wrote them down, they also emailed it to a friend, had those updates, the goal attainment rate increased over 77%. Now, it's important to point out that this is just an experimental piece of research, meaning that this hasn't been peer reviewed by other clinical psychologists. This hasn't been repeated by people all over the world in graduate study programs and the things that you really need to do to make sure this is concrete social science. However, it is statistically relevant. It is very indicative. It points in a direction that says this is something to take a strong look at. This is the power of an artifact. This is the power of writing it down. Now, I think it's important we ask the question, why is this true? You know, and while we may not have that answer right now, I believe that part of it is just bringing our focus to that. We say so many words a day. We have so many thoughts and ideas, priorities bounce up and down, but when we bring it into reality, when we actually write that down, it takes on a different life. It brings our focus to it. And I think that's the power of an artifact. That's the power of writing a promise card. That is a promise that you can physically see, you bring into this world, and it's not something that is magical in any sense. It simply is a matter of focus. That is why so many people have written promise cards, and that is why I believe our echoes, our local chapters around the country, are going to make an impact through the accountability support function that these monthly meetings have. You know, we've started them in different cities like Cleveland, Tampa, Denver, and we're continuing to expand them. But when we talk about accountability support, it is bringing a group together to say, here's my commitment, this is what I'm going to do in the next month, and then holding each other accountable, having those regular updates and taking it to that next step. I believe that this approach is backed by research, but it's not something that can only be done in chapters. It's something that you can do in your life. Write your commitments down, start a journal, use promise cards, write it on a Post-it note, whatever it is, take that step and hold yourself accountable by sharing it with another person, a group of people, or even posting that thought to social media. Take that step, make a difference, because the world is in need and you are needed.